All right, so I have a hot take, Ervin. Democrats losing non-white and white non-college educated voters, and it's the left's fault. And the outcome would be that Democrats are going to find themselves in the same position Republicans were in during the late aughts and early 2000s, 2010s, where Republicans had mainly white college educated men voters, but it wasn't enough to win the White House, and they lost both houses of the Congress. Some evidence, real quick. The New York Times and NPR both released a poll recently. So Democrats losing ground among non-white voters, but are gaining ground among white college educated voters. During the 2020 election, Democrats lost ground with non-white voters, non-college educated voters, mainly in Southern Texas, Latino voters, and Arizona, Latino voters. Even in California, with Asian American voters, they were losing ground with them to Republicans. I think the problem Democrats are having is that in talking to their college-educated voters, who they're winning a lot of, you're alienating the others, especially Latinos, Asian Americans. Non-college-educated blacks are less likely to vote Republican because, racism in the Republican Party. But you're still losing us too. We're just not going to vote at all.
Yes.
And that seems to be a serious issue. Is my hot take wrong?
So far, it seems pretty spot on. One thing that stood out to me while I was listening to the Slate What's Next podcast is the pundits there suggested that Biden ought to be seeking to court the further left, those college-educated whites, majority, of the population of those further left are college-educated whites, and be looking to get the blue-collar, non-college educated Democrat voting base. And they said verbatim, these shouldn't be mutually exclusive. You should be able to do both. I don't know how that's possible. Yeah, I don't know how one can bridge that gap that you're talking about, that gulf between those who are by the day, by the month, getting more and more liberal, leaning more and more to the left, far ahead of the country. So you're progressive, but when the progressives have progressed to a degree that everyone else can't fathom what they're talking about, then how is Biden supposed to reach out and get those people? He can't keep up because he knows he's going to lose, like you said, all these rural counties in between Austin and Houston.
All right, welcome back to Relative Conscious. My name is Brown.
Ervin Bryant.
Shout out to DJ for making our beat.
At DW Made That on social media.
Follow social media.
That's at Kind of Woke on Instagram and Twitter. Relatively Conscious everywhere else. Like, follow, share, retweet, comment, and let us know why everybody hating on Uncle Joe.
All right, so I have a hot take, Ervin. And it's a little. We're gonna workshop it out. Basically, come to the conclusion. See if it's correct. Democrats losing non-white and white non-college educated voters, and it's the left's fault. And the outcome would be that Democrats are going to find themselves in the same position Republicans were in during the late aughts and early 2000s, 2010s, where Republicans had mainly white college educated men voters, but it wasn't enough to win the White House, and they lost both houses of the Congress. Some evidence, real quick. The New York Times and NPR both released a poll recently. So Democrats losing ground among non-white voters, but are gaining ground among white college educated voters. During the 2020 election, Democrats lost ground with non-white voters, non-college educated voters, mainly in Southern Texas, Latino voters, and Arizona, Latino voters. They definitely lost huge ground with them. Even in California, with Asian American voters, they were losing ground with them to Republicans. And when they start talking about the gulf between the non-college educated and college educated voters, white and non-white, seems to be growing, basically. So he has non-college educated people what they care about. First things first is gas prices, inflation, the economy as a whole, and then further down are the SCOTUS and other things like that. If you ask college-educated whites what they care about first, it's SCOTUS, the war in Ukraine, COVID, and then it's inflation, gas prices, everything else. And even we see this when it comes to Biden fighting within his own party, deciding whether or not to allow more drilling offshore, basically, because the environmentalists didn't want it to be more drilling. And Biden had said in his campaign, he had promised not to give out more drilling leases, basically. But more drilling is necessary if you want to lower gas prices, basically. And so I'm beginning to see that there is almost a different language that's being spoken, or as different things are being cared about. And Democrats seem to be more appealing to their college educated voters and not to their non-college educated voters. And you can't win that way, basically. College educated whites or even college educated black voters are mainly segregated in cities or on the East Coast. In places like Texas, just too much in the middle between Houston and Dallas. Too many voters in the middle that you can't just not talk to them, basically. You can lose the state that way. You can like Beto O'Rourke, you can win Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and still lose the state because you lost all the rural areas. A last thing, this is more of a anecdote, a personal anecdote, right? The difference between college educated voters and college educated voters. Mine Facebook feed is more towards those who are Republicans voting, non-college educated whites or minorities. They seem to be very upset about Thor and the fact that they had two of the main characters were gay. And so it's the female character played by Tessa Thompson. What's her name? Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Valkyrie, and then Krug also.
Wait, the Rock guy?
Yeah. The way Krugs are made is that they hold hands over a lava pit with another guy. Two guys hold hands over a lava pit. It makes a Krug, basically. Maybe that's not even being gay, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Yeah. He's made of rocks.
They were still upset about it. They're like, what is this? This is propaganda. This is grooming, all those other things. My Twitter feed heard nothing about that.
Nope.
This
is news to me right now. I've never heard of that before.
Like it didn't exist. Like Thor happened, and they talk about the movie, but that was like a secondary thing, right? But it seems like the only thing that mattered on Facebook, right? And this to me seems to really like the two differences between the two. This is the problem Democrats are having is that they, in talking to their college educated voters, who they're winning a lot of, you're alienating the others, especially Latinos, Asian Americans. Non-college educated blacks are less likely to vote Republican because, racism in the Republican Party. But you're still losing us too. We're just not going to vote at all,
Yes.
And that seems to be a serious issue. Is my hot take wrong?
So far, it seems pretty spot on. I may be getting ahead of the conversation here, but one thing that stood out to me while I was listening to the Slate What's Next podcast is the pundits there suggested that Biden ought to be seeking to court the further left, those college-educated whites, majority, of the population of those further left are college-educated whites, and be looking to get the blue-collar, non-college-educated Democrat voting base. And they said verbatim, these shouldn't be mutually exclusive. You should be able to do both. I don't know how that's possible. It's a situation where, and I've, since Biden has been elected, I've been giving him a lot of slack because I don't know what he would be doing. But everything that he's doing seems pretty good. I can't think of better solutions. He's in very tough situations all the time. And I don't know how one can bridge that gap that you're talking about, that gulf between those who are by the day, by the month, getting more and more liberal, leaning more and more to the left, far ahead of the country. So you're progressive, but when the progressives have progressed to a degree that everyone else can't fathom what they're talking about, then how is Biden supposed to reach out and get those people? He can't keep up because he knows he's going to lose, like you said, all these rural counties in between Austin and Houston.
Yeah. Even the language is one of the issues. This is a Michelle Goldberg was talking to Ezra Klein, and they were talking about abortion, and she was talking about how many older feminists really hate the talking points that we shouldn't say women are those who get who are the point that we shouldn't say that women are the ones who are being controlled by abortion laws, that it should be people who bear children. I think was the terminology, right?
Yeah, those with wombs, those with ovaries, those who yeah, I mean they do generally just say like the person giving birth. They don't say mothers.
Yeah,
Which every time it does like kind of like break my brain a little bit because you're expecting to say mothers are doing this, mothers,
yeah,
and then they're giving the babies to women, but no, it's
yeah.
about those who give birth.
And it feels that just saying that linguistically feels weird.
Yeah,
Or using terminology. We all talk about Latinx thing, which I think has become to the left like a I don't care about that anymore. Like you keep bringing it up. I'm not trying to hear that. We said it
I
for a
think it's
reason.
over though. I think the Latin folks who have spoken out about that have kind of put that to rest as far as I've seen. I haven't heard Latinx in like a couple years.
Yeah, I don't think they're saying it anymore, but I think they are tired of hearing the criticism of it. And
Well, I mean, if it's done, it's done. I'd be tired of hearing it too, honestly. Like, I'm like, stop saying it. Leave me alone, dang.
but I think the criticism is emblematic of other things. Like it's using an example
Yes.
of other things. It'd be like fucking party, like being like, I'm tired of hearing about you talking about us having racist members. I mean, like, well, why? They were
Well, they're
there.
still doing that.
Yeah,
They're still doing that.
yeah. And I think even when it comes to and it's LGBTQ issues, um, and I try we try to be progressive about this, but I do think it would be folly not to say that the rest of the country is not as caught up. Like the transgender issue seems to be settled on the left almost. Like the transgender playing in sports, or transgender children wanting operations to be kind of like a set of questions, but the rest of the community is not. The rest of
It's not
the
at all.
country is not at all. And I understand the viewpoint, the feeling that I shouldn't have to have this conversation with you about a right, but like you're gonna have to do it because if not, then they're not gonna convince anybody. You're talking to yourself. You're preaching to a choir, right?
Here's what I'll say. I don't even think it's wrong for the situation. Like, if people have settled these issues, the further left, progressive social issues, or economic, because there's a lot of socialists walking around these days. Um, if you settle this in your mind, absolutely fine. Whatever, you have your opinion, you can be as strong as you want about it. I don't think it's an issue. When it becomes a make or break voting issue, when the party keeping up with the left progress, with the progressive end of the left wing, when Joe's inability to keep pace with that progress makes you not want to vote for Joe anymore, that's where there's a problem. It's like, okay, you, being an all or nothing voter in any case, I think is bad.
Mm-hmm.
For conservatives, it's bad. For Democrats, it's bad. And conservatives have a far different strategy as far as like how they court people, how they engage with their more radical voters. But yeah, Democrats, it's a mess.
Yeah,
there's an impasse.
yeah. One thing I would say is that like I think there's a misunderstanding or a message issue, like especially because like environmental issues, right? Because it's easy to say, well, why would we drill? We know drilling causes climate change issues to be worse, and if we have worse climate change, the lives can be even worse. Instead of we worrying about paying $5 at a pump, we worry about having to relocate, right? I can understand that argument someone would make,
Yeah,
but that doesn't help some of the persons paying $5 at the pump,
it
right? So
is not.
I went to New Orleans. I was like, they can't drill because if they keep drilling, then there's gonna be a hurricane coming overturn these levees, and you're gonna have to move away from here. But they're still at the pump, you're paying $5, and you're like, well, I gotta go to work, and I gotta put gas in my car. And what you're talking about is a world in the future where maybe I can afford an EV, an electrical vehicle, but right now, today, I have to pay for this gas. And so what you're talking about, I'm not even trying to hear that. How are you gonna help me right now? You know?
Yeah, and I mean beyond before you even get there though, like just that situation where gas prices are at an unforeseen height um, across the country, and drilling would like mitigate that.
Mm-hmm.
Simple. Okay, supply and demand. We understand that much. The fact that the answer to that, that a response to that might be now, of course, if it were to just to be criticism, just to hold accountable Joe Biden, be like, hey, we don't like this drilling stuff. It's a necessary evil, though.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing, but we hate the drilling stuff. You said you weren't going to do that. Holding him accountable is entirely normal, righteous, legitimate thing to do. When that becomes, like I said, a voting issue, where it's like I can't support Democrats anymore because they're lying, because they don't keep their word. Ridiculous, right? Like if you're not thinking multifaceted, if you're not considering context in all these situations, then okay, Joe Biden is a president beset on all sides by the most ridiculous circumstances we've ever seen, and we'd like for him to not drill anymore, but gas is $5 a gallon, so drill a little bit.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then when gasoline is at a normal price, then you can start to say, why are you know what I'm saying? I don't know, why can you not suspend that for a moment? If we have been for my entire lifetime railing against this pollution, railing against drilling more, fracking more, I've heard this my entire life, and I know the situation is more dire now, but gas is $5 a gallon. We got to work with what we got here.
Yeah,
Joe Biden has a ridiculous situation.
Yeah, and part of what it feels like is this was part of what I was thinking about, because it's weird, because I don't want what Republicans have, where Republican presidents get support no matter what they do, and it's almost like as if it's a cult of personality where there is no criticism of the king. The king is the last say, and so the criticism of Joe Biden is a good thing. It shows that people are thinking critically, but it's also like, man, can I not get some support from my homies though? Like, can I not have y'all on my side?
Is there no loyalty? And that is an interesting thing.
Yeah,
there's no loyalty at all.
Yeah,
they voted for you, and as soon as you messed up, be like, man, I hate that guy. I knew I should have never voted for him.
Yeah, and I think it's because they didn't want to vote in the first place, and we kind of dragged them to do it in 2020. But why did you have to be dragged in the first place? That's my problem. Why should I feel like almost like a person who brings a lover to the altar, and I'm like, well, we got married basically, and they're like, well, I didn't want to get married in the first place, but why did I have to drag you to the altar in the first place? Is the main issue. And I think these same voters, the ones who are mad about this, they want to warn Bernie Sanders to win, but they got basically dragged with Joe Biden because the rest of the country said, we're not about to do that with you, And I think that's really important, because Latino voters, they're more conservative. And I think, well, first thing, the whole idea of what is a Latino voter is, it's hard to parse out, because some of them, you probably would consider white.
That's a huge group.
Yeah, it's a huge group of diverse folks, right? What even makes someone Latino is what even combines them together is the fact they all speak Spanish. Is it the country they come
Portuguese?
From?
They're from of Latin America, so basically everywhere south of us.
Yes, but they all have different politics and things like that, But one thing I can say is that I think we took for granted the ideal that we thought that the way that the Republicans talked about immigration would be enough to turn them off. We thought that the way that Republicans do them, talk about them, would be enough to turn them off. And I think that was a miscalculation. One being that most of them, they don't watch the same TV we watch. They especially Spanish speaking only, or if Spanish or second English or second language, they'll watch Telemundo or something like that.
I think it matters more that Telemundo, Univision, and whoever else does Spanish broadcasting. If this is a immigrant community, they have different perspective, and just you can just stop there and oh yeah, duh. They're not looking at this the way that you're looking at it. This binary that you grew up in as an American. You understand things as Democrat, Republican, and you know that because I'm a black man, generally I'm just going to be on this side, and then it's just kind of done. And Democrats can count on you to do that. they're not from this country, like just by nature. Like, even if they've been here for a couple of generations, it's a great possibility that they don't have the same relationship to left and right and red and blue that us who've been here, as Black people since slavery, right? They don't have the same relationship, or especially now with the white people who've been here for a generation.
Yeah, and also another thing is would be, if especially if they work in areas that are more likely to have a culture that is more Republican leaning. So, if you think like construction or farming or agriculture, the people are going to come in contact with it more likely to be Republicans. They're going to be around those talking points a lot more than we are, and that's a whole nother thing,
Yeah,
And
being a blue collar person in America, the social pressure is incredibly conservative. It's insane. Like my brother is like always telling me like just the insane stuff that people say on his job, working at the chemical plant, and it's just like just the place. This is just a different place, different type of folks, and working there is like incredibly different to my experience.
Yeah, and one thing I'm sorry, why Democrats, especially white college educated Democrats, have the hippie problem, which is the problem in the '60s where hippies really thought the country was like ready for a revolution, and like 1968 happened, and we voted and suburban whites voted in Ronald Reagan and voted in Richard Nixon. Like they were like there was chaos in the streets. But when it got time to like nuts and bolts, let's go to the voting box. They put in Richard Nixon. They was not like really about that sexual revolution you were talking about. They weren't really about everything else other people were talking about, And I think as a you would think 2016 would have tore that veil off the You think 2016 would have tore that veil off their eyes? Like they would saw 2016 what happened with Trump winning. They'd be like, okay, so the country is not ready for what we're talking about. Maybe we need to slow down.
But see, people keep blaming the Democratic leadership, and I don't think that's it. I think it's like the public. Like I said, the Democratic leadership generally was like Joe. Joe's the answer because they kind of did learn. 2016, big old L, lots of losses from then on out. By the end of the Trump presidency, it's 2020. It's time. Strike while iron's hot. Give America a guy that everybody can rally around. And I think it was a wise choice. And America wanted him anyway. Like literally, that was the choice. That's who we chose, regardless of what the Democratic establishment wanted. But now we find ourselves here where I don't think it's support from within the party. I don't think it's where the money is going. I think it's an impasse. Like my man is trying to stretch his legs, but not straddle a fence necessarily, but trying to breach a gap that is like inhuman.
Yeah. What would you say to like a leftist person listen to this after we've done to them for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, but these issues are important to me. And it feels like you're not like SCOTUS, what's happening to the Supreme Court is important to me. What's happening?
Would you rather stand in principle, okay, and have decisions like Dobbs continue? Or would you rather retain your principles but not always stand so absolutely in them? You know what I'm saying? Give a little leeway for other Democrats to catch up. It's not exactly what you want when it comes to legislation. Environmental protections may inch forward instead of leap forward. Trans rights may inch forward instead of leap forward, but you won't have any more Dobbs decisions, right? Like if Democrats actually win in office, if Joe Biden can actually get laws passed, right? If the Supreme Court wasn't stacked for conservatives, of course that ship has already sailed, but hypothetically, if Democrats acted different, we would not be in some leftist utopia. Not going to happen. But that's not going to happen either way. So either you're going to mitigate the harm and deal with a Joe Biden. If Joe Biden got his way, we'd have to deal with the Joe Biden America, or we can live in this upside down in between world where it's really Mitch McConnell's America with Joe Biden's face on.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. I think and I sometimes I feel it feels funny to tell someone else to like you need to compromise.
No, we're black. No, we're okay with that. I'm okay saying that. We've been dealing with it.
It feels weird to say that still, though. It still feels weird to be like, you need to compromise. Left-leaning person who thinks I need to have more rights. You're wrong. You need to compromise. But just can't win that way. It's almost like I don't know how to explain. It's just something. In some ways, I know you want to do something a certain way, but that's not how you're gonna win. And you're gonna find yourself 2024 with Trump winning again. You're like, how did we get here? Because you didn't want to listen. Once you got here, I could
give you a dad metaphor. Okay, you can't eat this elephant in one bite. Okay, which is insane that we're like all of a sudden, just like you said, like it's like hippies. Like you think we're primed for a revolution, and I mean we're primed for change. It's a new age for sure. We're making progress, but relax, bro. Like you can't eat an elephant. Like it's absurd. One bite at a time. Relax. You know what I'm saying? First things first. Let's figure out the bathroom situation when it comes to trans rights, right? Like if we can knock that out, that's one thing, and then we can move on to the next thing. But I don't want to start blaming people for stuff, but I mean it's bad. The streets is hot, people. In order for anybody to be protected, the left has to rally around like common issues, common causes, common solutions. Elsewise, nothing's gonna be done.
Yeah. Ervin Sons Brown.
Ervin Bryant.
Peace.
Do it to him,